Night was falling like a heavy cloak over the road, and the city lights quickly faded in the rearview mirror of Jack's truck. He was an experienced truck driver, a true nomad of the highways, accustomed to the ebb and flow of routes that crisscrossed the country. But this time, something was different. The chill running down his spine was unusual, a feeling that he couldn't shake off, even with the sound of the engine roaring beneath the hood. The radio crackled with static, and the voice of the announcer echoed in his mind like a distant warning. Beware of the forgotten roads, where those who venture may never return. Jack glanced at the map in his lap, the tangled lines seeming to twist under the weak light of the dashboard. The load he was carrying was a mystery in itself, a shipment that seemed to have a price too high for the simplicity of its contents. The destination, a town called Silver Hollow, a name that felt more like a legend than a real place. He hesitated, tracing the outline of the location with his fingers, wondering if he had made the right choice. But the need to deliver the shipment and the promise of generous payment pushed him forward, forcing him to stifle any doubts that might arise in his mind. With a deep sigh, he folded the map and tossed it onto the seat beside him. The engine roared, as if sensing the driver's anxiety, and he continued on. The road stretched out before him, illuminated only by the truck's headlights cutting through the darkness. As he moved away from familiar highways, the landscape grew darker and more desolate. The street lights, once abundant, became sparse and sporadic, causing shadows to dance along the roadside as if something was lurking among the trees. As he drove, Jack couldn't shake the thoughts bubbling in his mind. He recalled stories told by other truckers, legends about roads that led to places where time stood still and the missing became part of the landscape. Were they just tales to scare the inexperienced, or was there some truth to them? Curiosity consumed him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was venturing into unknown territory. Then, his eyes fell upon an old sign, almost covered by vegetation. "Detour to Silver Hollow," it read, its faded letters nearly indistinct. Something about it drew him in, a combination of curiosity and a feeling he couldn't ignore. He remembered the announcer's words, a distant echo of caution, but the desire to explore the unknown was stronger. What could be waiting for him in Silver Hollow? What awaited him in that forgotten town? With an impulse, Jack turned the steering wheel, feeling the truck adjust to the new direction, as if guided by an invisible force. The road grew narrower, and the darkness seemed to deepen around him. The trees closed in, forming a black tunnel that seemed to swallow the light. The sound of tires on asphalt blended with the whisper of the wind, creating an unsettling soundtrack that accompanied him. As he drove, Jack began to notice the details around him. The air was thick with moisture, and the smell of wet earth filled his nostrils. The road, now riddled with potholes and debris, demanded his full attention. He adjusted the steering wheel, trying to keep the truck under control, but tension was building inside him. Each time the headlights illuminated a corner of the forest, he felt something watching, an invisible presence, like a silent spectator in a theater of darkness. With every mile he traveled, the feeling of disorientation intensified. Time seemed distorted. The minutes dragged on, and the road felt endless. He couldn't remember when he had left the main highway, and the idea that he might be lost began to seep into his mind. The thought tormented him, but he forced himself to ignore it, keeping his focus on the road ahead. After all, he was a truck driver, used to dealing with the unknown. Suddenly, a faint light appeared in the distance, like a solitary star in a moonless sky. Jack felt a momentary relief, believing he might find help or at least a direction. But as he approached, the light revealed an old cabin, surrounded by twisted trees and an atmosphere that exuded abandonment. The wood was weathered and covered in moss, as if nature were trying to reclaim it. Jack's heart raced. What had happened there? Curiosity tugged him closer, but an inner voice whispered that he should stay away. He parked the truck and got out, the sound of the engine dying behind him. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rustle of leaves in the wind and the distant crackling of something he couldn't see. Jack hesitated at the cabin door, his heart pounding in his chest. The air was cold, and the feeling of being watched grew stronger with each passing second. He remembered the stories he had heard about roads like this, where those who ventured too far were consumed by the unknown. With one last sigh, he pushed open the cabin door, which creaked as if protesting.